In the beginning, I clawed my way through the terrifyingly frail, starvation-filled early game. Last time, I suffered defeat after crushing defeat at the hands of violent bishops. And now, finally, I stood at the precipice of godhood. This is the highest difficulty. This is permadeath. This is the late game. This is sin. Dirty, vile sin. It festers in the soul and eats away at the inside. It can turn a man into a shell of his former self, unrecognizable to the world that knew him before. It corrupts. And it's the perfect resource for all the wacky new stuff in Cult of the Lamb's newest update. Which is why it was time for me to foster sin amongst my followers. With nude dancing? YouTube's cool with this, right? Sure. Now, you may be wondering what exactly I could do with this sin. Interior decorating! Yeah, I don't know either, but it looks nice. Anyways, after declaring a period of nude celebration, I figured it was time to go all in on the flesh part of the Sins of the Flesh update by unlocking the mating tent, which I wouldn't actually make till much later, so you got that to look forward to. That being said, I had ended last stream after killing Calamar to end the mid-game, so I figured it'd be a good idea to do a warm-up crusade to get into the groove of things before actually entering the last region. Which means, you know what time it is. Time for a witness fight. In this corner we have the third witness, a flying ball of hate that fires bullets around the arena and summons goons to fight his battle for him. And in this corner we have the Lamb, with a vampiric hammer in hand and an ice sword spell on deck. This boy uses brute strength and a lucky attack speed increase to melt through his foes. I'd ask for you to put your bets in, but as you can see, the Lamb's already got him on the ropes, and oh, that's a knockout, folks. You saw it here first. This witness is no harder than the rest. Oh, and I got a bit of a lifetime supply of cabbages for my troubles, so it was worth it. I returned home to find that I had finally begun my ascension to godhood. You see, previously, I'd had to fight tooth and nail for every last drop of power, but now, between the loyalty gains of ascension, the power generation of sacrifices, and the burgeoning growth of my flock, I was flying through my crusade tree. In a single trip to the temple, I was able to unlock 2 whole crusade techs, a feat that would have taken upwards of an endgame a week in the past. With power growing as quickly as it was, and such a successful warm-up crusade under my belt, I figured there was no point in putting things off. It was finally time to officially step into the late game. It was time to enter the Silken Cradle. My first crusade into the spider-infested lands of the Silk Cradle started with their claws, baby. These were the perfect weapon for clearing out these, quite frankly, massive eggs before they could hatch. And even if they did, the younglings would crumble under my might. Or, you know, they would if they would stand still. Come on! It appears you fucked up. Initially on this crusade, I found a new spell capable of possessing enemies hit by it, forcing them to turn upon their friends and tear them apart, provided their AI felt like it. Don't get me wrong, it's good because it meant they weren't attacking me, but like, more times than not, they kind of just stood there once possessed. Because of this inconsistency, I went ahead and took the chance to swap it out with this necromantic magic. With this new spell, I could summon an army of ghosts to strike out at my enemies. Now, in my first video on the early game, I mentioned that necromantic weapons were bad because the ghosts they summon are kinda mid. And that's still true, when you're only summoning 1. Now let's say you summon, 5 of them. That weak stagger and damage that held them back before adds up into one pretty damn meaty hit. And with that, it was time to make my way into the first boss room. Oh, also, I found some godly claws before I went in, so yeah. Speaking of godly claws, they were a great way to trivialize this fight. I mean, it probably could have been hard. This guy did jump around pretty fast, summon some goons here and there, and even fire bullets when he landed, but like... yeah, kinda hard for him to compete. After I squished that spider, it was finally time to see the new food of the region. Beetroots? Now that I think about it, This is the first game I've played that uses beetroots other than Minecraft. Well, I ain't one to complain about free food, so when I returned home, I made sure to toss them into the seed stations at the farm to let my followers plant them. And with another kill under my belt, and my farm stocked, it was time for yet another sermon. And with another sermon came another upgrade. At long last, I was finally able to unlock new relics. Now that I think about it, I never actually formally introduced relics, despite showing them in prior videos. Relics! Relics are powerful active items that can be found during crusades. Each have their own special abilities, and many of them recharge over time as you battle. They range from being actively detrimental to a run, to being game-breakingly overpowered. This branch of my tree unlocked more powerful angelic and demonic variants of existing relics. Honestly, pretty pog. As I walked out of my temple, one of my older followers came up to me with a request. These damn kids don't know how good they got it. Whip them into shape and show them how hard a truly faithful man works. Translation: perform a ritual declaring unending work for 3 days. Just goes to show that even in a death cult, old people can't seem to handle seeing people happy. Not really wanting to listen to the complaints of my soon-to-be sleep-deprived followers, I decided it was time to take my second trip into the Silk Cradle. I walked in to see Zealous Gauntlets again. Are these gonna be the late game's vampiric hammer? They ain't bad, so I'm not complaining. Plus, they were perfect for clearing the spawning pit from hell. That being said, I did get knocked down to half pretty early on. That being said, I bought a shield heart from Clawneck, so the run stayed alive. Following that little hiccup, I got one of my first legitimately free followers of the run. No wave defense, no convincing them to join, no buying them, just legitimately free. Even better, the next room I got my first angelic artifact of the run. And, calling it strong is a bit of an understatement. I soon found myself at the end of the Second Crusade, standing before the boss room. I have to admit, despite being the last region in the game, the Silk Cradle is the area I remembered the least from my normal playthrough. So to say I was a little nervous walking blind into a boss fight that I didn't remember at all would be a bit of an understatement. That being said, there was no way to go but forwards, so I held my head high and walked through the door to see a caterpillar. By the way, did I mention the lightning relic was strong? You know, in this difficulty, enemies have 50% more health. If this was normal mode, this guy would have been almost one-tapped. Starting to think I might be a bit over-leveled. Jokes aside though, after my initial burst, the guy summoned 2 massive spiders and covered the arena in poison, making the fight a little less easy than I thought it would be. Or more, making me play carefuler than I thought I would have to. Feels a little disingenuous to call a fight that I know hit a hard fight. With another boss fight down, I returned home to find sin had infiltrated my flock. Look at this vile man, the hypocrisy of his belief in me, and his inability to save his own soul. This horrific worm fills me with nothing but joy and decorative inspiration. I mean, just look at that stained glass window. Absolutely beautiful. Gorgeous even. With another upgrade on my temple complete, it was finally time to collect the beetroots from earlier. And, with their harvest, I was finally able to make a buffet of 3-star hearty meals for my followers. No longer would they be scrounging by on berry gruel and pumpkin soup. And to celebrate our bolstered infrastructure, I sacrificed more of the old. Because, like, seriously, cycling these guys out is becoming a constant necessity. Almost as much of a necessity as continuing the Crusades! Haha, top tier transition. I was wrong. I didn't escape it. In case you haven't seen my other 2 videos on this run, which you should, the Vampiric Hammer is legitimately the worst weapon combo in the game, in my opinion. But with my increased skill and a Binding of Isaac reference on my side, I was able to make the most of it. Shortly after, though, I came across the Big Man. Seriously, dude, you almost don't even fit on the map. You're tanky as hell. But I'm better. And after another big man, I came across my first follower defense of the region, which is a bit odd considering this is the 3rd Crusade. Still, it's the same old, and at this point, these wave defenses are more of a formality than anything else, so I was able to get through it without taking a hit. As I quested through the last floor before the boss room, I stumbled upon an old friend of mine, Kudak, and he offered me a vampiric dagger, freeing me from the shackles of my hammer. And with my shackles off, it was high time I took on the last mini-boss of the Silk Cradle, a giant scorpion by the name of Haras. To be honest, I surprised myself with a pretty good dodge at the start of this, and with a relic capable of freezing time on my side, I was able to put a pretty damn good chunk of damage in early. Seeing how fast the man dashed around though, I made sure to keep my distance, using my missile spell to chip away at him, and dodging his barrages of bullets as they spread out around the map. Though he got a couple of good hits in himself, he was no match for my onslaught. With my relic recharging throughout the fight, I was able to put an end to our battle, with another time stop, wailing on him as he stood there, powerless against me. I returned home to a bit of a crisis. Not only was I on the verge of starvation, but so was my cult, leaving faith dangerously low. Though I was able to quickly mediate this with the stores of food I'd built up, I was starting to realize that no matter how much food I produced, there was always going to be hunger problems while I was gone, since my followers were incapable of cooking for themselves. The lazy bastards. It was high time I made a true kitchen. Capable of storing up to 30 meals worth of food, this kitchen would allow a follower to cook in my place while I was gone on my escapades. As I finished erecting the kitchen, though, one of my followers approached me with a request. He wanted to be my first disciple. Finally, after countless hours of toiling away through harsh battles and even harsher city planning, someone had finally noticed my divinity. Finally, they were ready to give themselves over to me fully. Finally, I was one step closer to becoming a god. Following his ascension to discipleship, he approached me again to tell me his idea for new buildings exclusive to my chosen few. Wait, does that say a buff for my crusades? Sign me the hell up! Shit, I gotta get that thing built right now so we can... Oh. That's fine. Just throw money at it. All the tithes, all the plundering gains, all of it! Yes, yes, yes! It was finally time to see the fruits of my labor, the power of my discipleship. Oh. Well, it seems we have a bit of waiting to do. And I guess there's no better time than the present to finally give in to the sins of the flesh. Oh, come on! It's fine. It's fine. I still have money left over. It's not too hard to afford. Well, now that my coffers are dry, it's time to start a family. It's up to me, the leader of our cult, to decide which of my followers will make for the best couple, combining their traits into the perfect child. After all, nothing says cult quite like a healthy dose of eugenics. With my couple chosen, it was time to channel within them the sins required for mating, and soon a beautiful golden egg was laid. Don't question the implications of it being an egg, let's just say it's some sort of platypus situation or something. After a few more days of waiting, and a couple of quick crusades for bones to restock my ever-depleting ritual supplies, my disciple shrine was still not full. But, in other more important news, I'd finally finished off the combat tree. At long last, after 11 hours into the run, I had done it. I had reached the maximum level of combat prowess. I had ascended to a paragon of pure violence. But with this ascension came a question. Where do I go from here? What's the use of sermons now? I pondered it that night as I laid down to rest. My heart dropped the next day when my sermon commenced and nothing happened. Just the normal small boost of faith and nothing more. But wait, what's that? That's right, baby! Sermons now give a full shield heart to your next crusade. Even better, it actually lets you store up to 2 sermons worth of hearts. Completing the tree had, in a sense, doubled my health. I now passively had the same HP as I would have had playing in normal mode. In celebration for this insurmountable achievement, I unlocked the next level of decoration for the temple, filling it with this beautiful bounty of nature. Seriously, I fucking love this aesthetic. Additionally, after a literal hour of waiting, my disciple filled his shrine, giving me a whole half shield heart. Look, I'm not complaining about free health, but like, An hour for half a shield? Seriously? Still, with my health more than doubled and my combat tree complete, it was finally time for me to delve into the Silk Cradle to kill the last of the 4 bishops, Shamara. Life is a cruel mistress, though, and I was once again given the fucking vampiric hammer. There are 6 different weapons in this game. Each weapon has 7 variants, meaning there is 42 weapon combinations in the game, and somehow I've hit the worst one on like half of my runs. You can call it cope, but I think this game just hates me. That being said, where my luck lacks in weaponry, it more than makes up for in cards. Shortly after entering the Crusade, Clawneck gave me a couple of shield hearts, meaning that by room 6 of the Crusade, my health bar looked like this. And it didn't even stop there. I got another heart just a few rooms later. Hell, I had so much health that it was actually worth it to go the route that removes a full heart in exchange for a card. Got attack speed from that, by the way. And I can't even complain about the weapon anymore either, since on the same floor, the game just handed me a rifle. And to keep the god run going, I found a full shield heart just vibing in a bush. And for the first time ever, Clawneck offered me a prismatic card, cutting my spell cost down by 75%. But no, we aren't finished there. I shit you not, I found even more health, and a necromancy spell that allowed me to summon 5 ghosts at a time. Up to 8 times because of the spell cost cut. This had to be Massive Monster's apology for all the vampiric hammers, because just look at this health bar. This is literally 4 times my max HP. Still, I couldn't get too cocky walking in. After all, I had lost a fight to Calamar with only 5 hits less of health before. Still, it was finally time to take on Shamara. Like any good boss, Shamara came out swinging, literally shitting out bombs. There is real pain in that face. This woman is fighting demons. And just like the spiders that came before her, she flew off the screen. Only unlike her children, she didn't feel like indicating where she was landing. As she hit the ground though, a shower of spiders rained down from the cocoons on the ceiling. To get out a bit of AoE damage, I summoned wave after wave of ghosts, thinning out the ads and chipping away at Shamara's frankly massive HP pool. Shamara kept me on my toes though, constantly dashing and jumping around the arena. But hours of practice had led me to this point, and I was able to skillfully dodge past all of her attacks. I made it all the way through her first stage, taking only a single hit. But, in her desperate state, her attacks became more erratic and harder to dodge. Bullets spiraled out in slow, awkward patterns as she jumped around, leading me to take hit after hit as I dodged around the arena. Still, I had the health to tank it, and as I calmed myself down, her attacks became less and less effective. It was only a matter of time. Her fate was sealed, and with the fanning of my hammer, I brought her to her knees. Finally, I had done it. I had brought an end to the bishops of the old faith. But they were not my true enemy. No. One man stood above them all. The one who had saved me from their wrath. The one who would demand my sacrifice. The patron of the Red Crown. He who waits below. A god once chained by the very bishops I slew. I knew if I wanted to fight him, I was going to need every ounce of power I could muster. I gave my sermons to build my shield of faith, and crown new disciples to worship at my shrine, giving me a 5% damage buff to my next crusade. But that would not be enough. No, I needed one last thing. A building I'd neglected for far too long, capable of feats of strength I could never imagine. The demonic circles, capable of shifting a follower into a demon to aid me into battle. This would be my Exodia. With the loyalty I'd built up among my followers over countless crusades to the land of the old faith, I was able to churn through the divine inspirations, unlocking the max tier of the circles in record time. I called upon my most faithful followers, my disciples, to aid me in the insurmountable battle to come. 2 of them formed into ghastly beings, tethering themselves to my soul so that I may gain increased vitality, and 1, an angry ball of spikes ready to tear through my foes by my side. Finally, with my followers at my side and my disciples on my shoulders, I made my way to the circle, calling upon those who pledged themselves to me to tear open a rift to the plane of the gods themselves. white void surrounded me as I opened my eyes, and holy shit! I'm gonna be honest, I really didn't know how overpowered the demonic circles were before this fight. But hey, 13 hours into the run, and 35 hours into the challenge, I was down for anything to give me the best chance at not restarting. 6 pedestals sat before me, 3 with weapons and 3 with spells. I walked over to see my options at Godly Dagger. Oh, and this spell gives me a 2-second burst of invincibility. Armed with one of the strongest setups I could have possibly gotten, I made my way deep into the void, approaching the chained figure of my god, the god I would soon supplant. He looked down on me with a toothy smile and congratulated me on my escapades. I, his most loyal servant, had set him free. Now, all that was left to do was to give myself over to him, so that he may take his place as the bearer of the Red Crown. His right hand was the first to approach me. He fought hard, landing an early hit and honing after me with dark chains. But he was no match for my godly dagger. I dodged and weaved around his attacks, cutting down the apparitions he summoned as we fought. And with every hit, I chunked massive pieces of his health away until he was no more. His left hand was even easier than his right. He shot bullets around in a chaotic pattern, knocking a full heart off. But as soon as he touched the ground, I cut into him, melting his health and dispatching of him in a matter of seconds. At long last, it was finally time. Time to kill God himself and take my place as a rightful divine. Like his followers, he assaulted me with chains of black and red energy and summoned misty forms of cultists I'd slain before. With every chance I got, I closed the gap and cut deep into his flesh. Every slash dealt massive damage, for what better weapon is there to kill a god than the blade of a divine? I felt the rush of adrenaline inside me as dozens of hours of practice led me to fight like a honed blade, and with ease, I slew God himself. But wait, something's not right. By the stars! Okay, let me break character here for a second just to say this is the coolest boss arena of any game I've ever played. An infernal pit surrounded by burning upside down crosses, fighting around the poles of your crucified followers. It's just so perfect. Anyways, I slashed away at his eyes as they floated around the hellscape, firing wave after wave of bullets and burrowing underground when threatened, so that he who waits himself can bombard me. I used my spell to bathe myself in invincible radiance, absorbing their blows while dealing my own. I ducked and weaved and slayed until the last of his eyes popped, leaving the god himself vulnerable. And with one final slash, I cut him down. I watched as his divine essence faded until only a scared little cat remained. It was then that I was faced with a choice as a new divine. Would I be a merciful, ambivalent force, or a vengeful being of war? Those who had come before me had chosen vengeance, and it had led them to me. I broke the cycle with mercy. Finally, I had set my followers free. Free from the fear of those who had oppressed them. Free from the fear of the old faith. Free from death itself. At long last, I could finally rest. One last time, I walked back to the portals to say my goodbyes. Yep, that's right. That was only the beginning. In fact, Cult of the Lamb's postgame makes up about 50% of its total completion. For now, though, I'm happy with my current playthrough. But if you enjoyed this series and would like to see me play through the rest of the game on the hardest difficulty, leave a like and a comment below. And while you're down there, why not consider subscribing? This was such a fun project to work on. It truly means a lot to me to see people enjoy videos like this, because whether I'm making it for one person or for 1,000, all I really care about at the end of the day is being able to entertain someone. Coming up next, I should be releasing a video on my journey to the completion of a solo run of the first mission of GTFO, a stealth shooter that is designed to be hard with a 4-man team. If that sounds interesting, ring that bell to watch for its release. Or if you'd rather see challenges like this live, check me out over at twitch.tv/Felix_Fighter, where I stream all of these runs. And until next time, thanks